I just don't see the positives of being so negative when that's really not the full story.
What is the two different cultures like from Duke softball to Clemson softball? Do you remember last year when I asked who's the biggest rival Duke has? Who do you hate the most? Do you remember who your answer was? Who is going to win the 2025 national championship? Welcome back to season 3, episode 1 of Softball Speakeasy. Wow, can't believe we're back. Kelly and I knocking off the rust a little bit. You might be wondering, season 3, have you all been doing this for 3 years? No, year 2, season 3. Season 1 was last college softball season. Season 2 was Kelly's pro season. All Kelly Torres there. And then season 3 is where we stand now, February ahead of 2025 college softball season. But if you're new here, my name is Raine Wilson. I'm a former Duke softball player turned broadcaster.
And my name is Kelly Torres, former Duke softball player, current professional softball player, and now GA coach for Clemson softball.
And Softball Speakeasy is a podcast that will follow major storylines in softball and provide next level access to the 2025 college softball season through the eyes of a TV analyst and a coach at Clemson. We'll aim to give you a behind the scenes look at what it takes to play softball at the highest level. Well, so the intro has changed obviously a little bit. We said, and if you're a returning audience, thank you so much for being here. Happy to have you back. Happy to have this community back. And if you're new, welcome to Softball Speakeasy. The whole goal of this is to have fun, talk ball, talk softball, and follow kind of the storyline of the softball season. Last year, Kelly was a senior at Duke, so we followed the week to week as a player. Now we have an even better kind of like perspective into college softball this year with you being a coach and a GA at Clemson, our rival, Duke's rival. So just an overview of the show. We're going to give you updates of where we've been, where we're going, what Kelly is doing at Clemson, what's going on in my life. We'll talk an overview of the ACC, of the college softball landscape. And then finally, we will predict with certainty the 2025 national champions. And while you're here, thank you for the support. Please go ahead, give us a thumbs up, rate us 5 stars, whatever podcast platform you're listening. That means so much to us. And to get us going, let's just talk updates. Kelly, where have you been? What is up? How is Clemson? How's life? Give it to me.
I mean, Clemson is very, very different. It's a little country. We got the water. We got, it's a very family-oriented place, and I love it here. It's very different than Durham, North Carolina for sure, and it's a really weird feeling when you pour your blood, sweat, and tears into a program, and within a couple months, you're rooting for the rival of what you just played against for 4 years. So, I mean, I'm excited for this season. It's so different standing on the sidelines and going to practice every day, but not practicing yourself, but still wanting to like give it all for the team,
Right.
But you're not doing the action yourself. It's really weird.
First thing I want to ask is about that, is the transition from playing to coaching, the transition from being on the field, being in the mix, and you still play professionally, obviously, but it's a different feeling, right, to be on the sidelines. How has the transition been for you from being the one practicing every day to the one writing the practice plans? How has that been?
Not gonna lie, it has its highs and lows. Like, I love learning so much in the coaches' conferences and in the meetings and like how much time goes into, okay, we want to practice this and we want to practice these plays and for this situation and because of our pitching this way and our defense. And I mean, as a player, when you get told these things, you kind of just do it in practice, but there's a whole thought process behind it. And that's been fascinating. But then when practice time comes and you want it a certain way or you want to be out there doing it, you don't get that same competitive drive. But it's almost like you're pouring that love out, like vocally sharing your passions, your drills, whatever it can be, or at least what I can do is what I've been trying to do. But I mean, I'm going to lie if I'm saying it's easy because there's so many days where I'm like, just like, give me a jersey and I can pretend, like I look like some of the girls on the team, just
Yeah.
so I'm like, "Give me a jersey," and you wouldn't even tell if I have a helmet on, but everyone comes to these days where you hang up those cleats and you become a coach or a spectator.
Yeah. No, and it's, as a player, obviously, you feel like that it's never gonna end, right? Like, "Oh, I'm always gonna be
No, it
here."
ends.
And people tell you all the time, they're like, "Soak this in, this is gonna be like the glory days," like, all of that. I remember vividly having that moment was at Clemson. My senior year, I tore my ACL, and then my
Mhm.
first place that we went was Clemson. What an insane atmosphere. We can get
Oh,
into that a little
insane.
later. But I remember vividly, like, I had to, like, run to the back, like, the visitor locker room and just, like, had a moment, had, like, a breakdown of, like, I can't get out there. I can't be on the field. So, it's interesting to hear that, like, that's kind of it's probably hard too because you're still playing, so
Yeah.
you're still practicing and things, but
Mhm.
you're not on the field with Clemson. But I wanna ask you a question for now that you have the perspective of the coaches
Yeah.
and you're in those meetings, what's one thing you would tell every single college player out there that they might not realize
Mm.
about what it takes to be a coach on a high level staff?
Yeah, as a player, I feel like I thought things were more, I don't wanna say directed towards me, but it felt very like, me, me, me.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm not playing well. I'm not doing this. I'm not it felt like my role on the team was always in question,
Mhm.
but there's so much more in those meetings, and not one person is ever talked to directly and, like, always on the subject, I mean, you
Right.
have money to consider, you have scholarships, different people, years, eligibility, like, there's just so much more to think about, and I think as a player, you're definitely in a very individualized mindset.
Yeah, and it makes sense in that you handle your business and players too, you're handling like not only you're handling the sport, you're handling academics, you're handling a lot of
Mhm,
things. And the coaches have such a difficult job. For a long time, you might know this, I wanted to coach. That was like my dream. And
mhm,
obviously, career went a different direction, which we'll get into in a second, an update with that. But it's a hard job. And so, hats off to the coaches
it
out
is.
there who all they do time in a day in and day out, they want the best for their team. And as a player, like you said, it cannot, sometimes it feels directed. It doesn't feel like, oh no,
Mhm,
they like don't like me or whatever. My role is in question. But as you know now, sitting in the coach's room, just trying to win, just trying to put the best team out there. So yeah, that what a cool thing. What are you studying as a GA at Clemson?
yeah. So I'm getting my Master's of Science in Health Psychology, which I've really enjoyed. Grad school compared to undergrad, I mean, all of the classes are very, like, specific.
Mhm.
And my thesis is what I'm currently working on right now, and I'm trying to see if meditation can influence the amount of or the frequency of your flow states during competitive games. So
Mm.
can athletes tap into flow state more frequently when they're meditating more? Which, I mean, I'm a little biased because I'm a big component of meditation, and we've talked to length about the powers of what meditation can do,
Mhm.
and science is just getting there. Like, I'm so excited for the next 10 years when we have, like, numbers to back up all of these qualitative, like, objective things that people are saying about meditation. There's just no numbers to back it up, so people are
Yeah.
like, "Can I believe it, or is it real? Is it happening?"
Yeah.
So that's been super cool to kinda research.
Yeah, I just got on the train not too long ago, and
Woo!
it is worth it if you're a young athlete, if you're any human being out there. Although the evidence-based thing might not be in sports yet, it is
Mhm,
ancient. It's like an ancient thing
mhm.
that people have done. It is incredible. We can do a whole other episode on meditation, but to
Yeah.
start with, if anyone's interested in trying, go to the Calm app, just 5 minutes a day, 2 minutes a day. It just
It's
gets
about
started.
consistency.
Yeah,
That's what it
consistency is
is.
key.
I mean, I the mental training paradox, it's a paradox known of games saying, "Oh, it's 80% mental." Like,
Yeah.
every coach in every sport is like, "It's 80% mental once you get to the college game." But are
Mhm.
you spending 80% of practice time working on it? Like, I feel like people would forget that the brain is a muscle. Like,
100%.
if you go to the gym 3 times a week, lifting heavy, getting your biceps all jacked, you're getting your body, your physical muscles in tune for season. Are you doing the same thing
Yeah.
with your mind? Because like your body, it can lose it and it can gain it. It's a
Yeah.
muscle.
Yeah, no, it's so important. And we'll do another segment on this if folks are interested because I wish I would have had that as an athlete too.
Yeah.
LeBron James has a really good meditation he does on the app that I use that I'm like, wow, every young athlete should listen to this. It's
Damn,
incredible. So
I
you're
haven't seen
studying
that.
that, you're impacting Clemson in such a wonderful way.
Right.
And my update, and for folks who know me might know I was a travel guy for the last 4 years. I've completely shifted careers into medical technology, and so I have a full-time job in med tech and also doing the podcast, also broadcasting. All that to be said, want to make the caveat to this season that we're going to try to put episodes out every single Friday, but we just thank you ahead of time for your patience with Kelly tracking down the thesis and coaching and my full time job in broadcasting. We are going to do our best to put this thing out, but it is more unpredictable than last year. So, but that's all exciting things. And
Mhm.
one thing too, I want to note, Kelly, because you and I have talked, we saved a lot of our conversation for the show.
Yep.
Is I have not been on social media as much. I didn't do the whole like post and say I'm not on social media, but
Mhm.
I just haven't been on as much as I was in previous years. And I hear that there's a new trend and it's gotten a little interesting in the softball world. Can you tell me about this trend of some kind of you're so funny or
Yeah.
something?
Okay, so it's "You're so funny" trend that's going all over TikTok, and I have some of the quotes pulled up on here.
So
So
wait, what's the
basically
premise of
yeah.
it? Yeah.
So basically, for people who don't know about this trend, it's on TikTok and it's really just the softball community, which I
Okay.
it's like, why? Why is it no other sport? But it's like, "Haha, you're so funny, my coach blah 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 blah," and it's kind of just
Uh,
like almost like a trauma dump. I don't wanna say
got it.
trauma because like, I don't wanna let other people's experiences I'm not trying to
Yeah,
downplay
no, I
what
hear
they
you. Label
felt,
that. I hear you.
but it's definitely, like, all red flags from the coaching staff or the university or whatever it is.
Okay.
So I have a couple of quotes I took down, and I wanna hear your reactions to them.
But
Okay.
so the idea is that, like, for example, people are funny, comedians are funny because they've gone through like dark things, and this is the idea
Mhm.
is that people are sharing the dark things that they've experienced, and that's why they're funny. Okay,
Yep.
yeah, let me hear him.
'Kay. "You're so funny. If I didn't go to therapy, I'd get cut." That's what
Honestly,
"You're
it's not a
so"
bad.
I
Keep going.
mean, therapy's not the worst.
Yeah.
"You're so funny. Had all day practice with back-to-back lift, and all they gave us was Slim Jims."
Ooh, that's tough. That's
That is
tough.
tough. I mean,
That's tough.
you
That's
need
tough.
to "You're so funny. My coach spread lies about me to multiple people for no reason other than to make my life worse."
Ooh, that sounds like some drama.
Yeah,
That sounds like some drama.
yeah, and there was also one about Duke,
No way.
and yeah, and I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but I just wanna say say because I know there's other people at other programs who probably had a teammate make one about theirs, but they're like, "I loved" I know I mean, NC State, LSU, Florida, like,
Mm,
literally every school out there has had one of these trends on them, and I know
yeah,
there's players on that team who did not have that experience and actually
right.
loved the coaches. So, for the people who saw the Duke one, I mean, that is a very personal experience, and she took that in her way. I
Yeah.
I just don't see the positives of being so negative when that's really not the full story.
No, I think that's no, I think it's not uncommon in any sporting or any realm in life, honestly, is like headline of like they did me wrong, right? Like
Yeah,
they screwed me up. And like I can empathize in a way that like my freshman year, I didn't play well, never played, and it was like, oh, it could be they didn't play me, it's everyone else's fault except no, I sucked. I
yeah,
didn't play well. I didn't figure it out. I couldn't yeah, there were things that people could point to in on whatever part of that program that were really negative and really toxic, but there's two to tango.
yeah,
And also putting like someone out like putting a program out like that and leaving a bad taste in anybody's mouth about that program for your personal experience, like that is your right to like share those. And also, I also am someone who believes that coaches and programs should be absolutely held accountable for things that they do and things
mhm,
that they say. and at the same time recognizing that a headline is just that, it's a headline, and that this person who had a bad experience at Duke, I would say the majority of folks from Duke had a great experience.
Yep.
So yeah, that's an interesting trend, a bold trend for people to post on, but it sounds like it sounds like some of them are really funny and interesting,
I know. No, I
but
mean,
yeah.
there's some funny ones, and then there's some ones that I'm just like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah.
Like, you feel bad, but you're like you wonder how the life was, the culture of the team
Yeah.
was, like, there's just so much more to the picture that we're not
Yeah.
seeing just from the trend.
Exactly, exactly, and that's another piece too that's really interesting is getting a behind the scenes look at a culture, because a team can be really, really successful and have a really negative, nasty culture, or kind of be split halfway. So I wanted to ask you, you now have experience with two different cultures. You
Mhm.
graduate from Duke last year, you're at Clemson this year. Granted,
Yeah.
you're on the coaching staff, but you really get a sense of the culture. Maybe
Mhm.
not good or bad or toxic or not toxic, but I do want to ask the question of, what is the two different cultures like from Duke softball to Clemson softball?
Ugh, that's such a heavy question.
I know. Well,
I think Duke Duke really took softball like business. Like, this
mhm.
is work, this is our job. I mean, both are right. I'm not saying one's wrong and
Right.
one's,
Better
right.
than the other.
Yeah, I mean, they're 2 different styles.
Yeah.
Clemson is a lot more family oriented, very open,
Mhm.
understanding, and there's pros and cons to both, of course. I mean, to any culture and any style, there's pros and cons, but it's super interesting to go from one to the other, and you kind of think, like, "What if I was a player in this type of culture? What
Right.
would have happened? Or what could I have been, or what would I have been?"
Mhm.
But it's really interesting and kind of fun to just be so immersed in something
Yeah.
so different than what I used to like, what I thought college softball was.
Yeah. Well, and to that point too, you can see like me transferring similarly. I thought every program was like that. I thought
Mhm.
every program was like run you into the dirt, lift as heavy as you can, eat, be big, and then yeah, figure out school. But softball is what we're here for. Whereas Duke was like, no, we are going to go all gas, no brakes on academics and
Mhm.
softball and everything else, like life of excellence, like
Yeah.
to the highest degree in everything. And I always tell young women who are thinking about where to go, like, and I would love to hear your advice. And we get the, you get the question all the time at camps, especially as a player, of like, where should I go? What do you want to pick? I'm like, you see the women that are graduating and like what they're doing and the
Mhm.
washer machine that is that culture and where you'll get spit out as. That's like what you should try to choose from. Like,
Yep.
and the women that we graduated with, what they're doing, like if you see yourself going that track, go that track. Clemson the same way. Whatever they're
Mhm.
doing, that's kind of the track that's the human you'll be. That's the culture you'll immerse yourself in. So it's got to be really interesting to kind of see the two dynamics. I do
Yep.
want to dig into the softball piece of it though.
Mhm.
So I want to ask, Duke from 2024 to 2025. Where do you see their strengths? Where do you see the things
Mm.
that are maybe question marks? Where do you see Duke in 2025?
I mean, they are still an excellent program. They have that sophomore, well, now they're juniors. That junior class
Yeah.
is so heavy. They got Cassidy Curd, Amina Vega, Deanna, like that class is very stacked. And I don't see them really missing a beat. I mean, I do see without the core of team 4, like those older seniors, my grade were the last to play with the foundation of Duke softball, which was you.
Mhm.
And so I do think maybe their culture is going through a little shift right now, and I'd be interested to see how they come out and play out, but they don't have those people who kind of held the foundation anymore, so it's interesting that they might be building their own right now.
It's interesting too because every single team is brand new. Every single culture is brand new. And the sign of leadership, like when team 5, that class, like Jay, Rach, Peyton, all
Mhm.
that crew, I'm missing obviously a bunch of them, but that crew left. That I'm sure that was the question mark I
Yeah.
had, is like who's gonna really like hold down the fort. But the sign of good leadership and the sign of good culture is that the next team, the next group, the next leadership, they're
Mhm.
prepared. They've been kind of and groomed is a little dramatic, but like they've been kind of set up to be the leaders. And so
Yeah.
that's the sign of good leadership is if they can take the torch and keep going. But every team going through that kind of culture shift and so it'll be interesting to kind of watch. So for you, Kelly, you have an inside scoop into Duke softball, right? For anyone watching who might not know that team in and out, who are some names outside of that junior class that's incredible, outside of the
Mhm.
stars that we've seen? Who are some names that we as softball fans should keep an eye out for?
Kyrie Rodriguez. I
Mhm.
think that's such a big name that people don't have on Duke softball's list, but she redshirted last year and for the entire year was just picking my brain, in practice behind me, learning the ropes, and, like, she was there every single day learning, and I'm excited to finally see her kinda show out. Almost like, I kinda had her Frankie and I both kinda had her under our wings and just
Mhm.
kind of wanted to show her our cut systems and teaching her
Yeah.
everything, so I'm excited for Kyrie to show out.
Yeah.
Also excited for Anna Gold, her senior year, show out.
Yeah.
I think Anna has a lot of good things coming for her this year too.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm excited to see kind of what they put together on the field and see some new faces in the circle too, and like how they kind of
Mhm.
formulate the staff. That'll be really fun. And
Yeah.
Kelly, I want to bring up something that we've touched on Clemson, obviously. We've talked about Clemson, but
Mhm.
do you remember last year when I asked who's the biggest rival Duke has? Who do you hate
Yeah.
the most? Do you remember who your answer was?
I do, I said Clemson,
You
didn't
said
I?
Clemson. You said Clemson. And
But
now,
for a reason, though. I hated Clemson because of how crazy their stands are, how insane their fan base is, how rowdy the scrappiness of the team,
yeah.
their beautiful jerseys, like, they're so put together, they have the best things, but now it's on my side.
Mm-hmm.
And today we had our orange and purple scrimmage, literally
Mm-hmm.
just a scrimmage between an inner squad, and it
Yeah.
had like 300 fans at the game, sold out, little girls up and down the stadium running to get the home runs, like,
Mm-hmm.
it the fan base they have here is like no other, and I've really
Yeah.
haven't seen a softball program other than Oklahoma
Mm-hmm.
that has such a strong fan base like they do here.
Yeah. The rivalry, if you will, kind of goes back to the very beginning
Mhm.
of Duke softball comes on the scene, brand new program, gets kind of the shining light. It's like, ooh, what's Duke gonna do? And we have this nice stadium, and here we are. And then a year later,
Here is
Clemson, like, I
Clemson.
mean, it was like imagine a pop star comes on the scene, and then this mega star
Bro,
comes and like
yes.
overshadows everything because they did it to the most insane degree. The fans were bought in. Like it's a rivalry that's really in its foundation is respect and also really admiration for how they grew the game so quickly
Mhm.
and where they put their program so quickly. So I want to ask the same question about Clemson. So
Yeah.
from 2024, obviously a tougher year for them. Here in 2025, they lose. I mean, they lose the foundation. They lose the
Mhm.
founding women of Clemson softball.
Yeah.
Where do you see Clemson this year? Who are some names that we should know?
Well, it reminds me a lot of the Team 5 that you were talking
Mhm.
about earlier of, like, that foundation is gone. So I've been kind of part of that building piece of, like, all Mackenzie Clark, Valerie Cagle, like,
Mhm.
all of these known names that built this program are just not here anymore.
Yeah.
But I mean, Maddie Moore, Julia Noller, Kylie Johnson, Brooke McCubbin, and the freshman class is stacked. But
Mhm.
it's just like those people, the Clarks and the Cagle, and although I didn't coach them or get to know them, they built and instilled that leadership in that next class. So
Mhm.
it's that same question that people had at Duke, like, oh my God, are they going to be good? The
Yeah.
entire foundation just left. And guess what? The next year we showed out. And I
Yeah.
think that's the same story that's about to happen here. And I mean, they're going to do it in their way, the Tiger way, rather than
Mhm.
Blue Devil way. So I'm really excited to be a part of it.
Oh my gosh, can't believe you just said that. The Tiger
I
Way. The
know.
Tiger Way. That's great. I'm
Uh,
excited. I'm excited. I'm selfishly pumped to have like an insight into that season. And I know
mhm.
the audience is going to be pumped to hear kind of your perspective. And obviously, we'll still cover Duke softball. I'm broadcasting a lot of their games. So we'll be right in the thick of it with both of these programs. And you mentioned doing it the Tiger way, Clemson opening up with some solid opponents early on, and then going to Clearwater. Duke starting out at Clearwater. I want to read to you Duke's first 5 games because
Okay.
last year the biggest critique of Duke was strength of schedule. I want to
Mhm.
read to you the first 5 games for Duke. I want to ask you what matchup is most interesting. They got Penn State, Mississippi State, Missouri, Northwestern, and Kentucky. There's a lot there.
Hmm.
Which matchup seems most interesting to you?
Missouri,
Uh huh.
duh. I
Uh huh.
mean, throwback to Supers, and that was an insane series.
Yeah,
I mean, what was it? All 3 games going extra innings or
that
2
was
of the
quite.
3?
I
Like,
don't know, dude.
I mean, that was probably the most insane series I've ever been a part of.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was crazy. And then I want to ask you about the weekend after that. So
Okay.
they're going down to Florida to
Mm.
face Florida. And guess who's on Florida's team? Do you know who's on
Oh,
Florida's team?
Layla.
Layla
I mean,
Lamar.
Layla should, tell the entire team what's going on because she literally practiced and, like, hung out and, like,
Uh huh.
grew up at the stadium.
Yep. And for folks listening who don't know who Layla is, that is Marissa Young, head coach of Duke, her daughter. I mean, when I knew Layla since she was like 11, which is great. Or no, maybe, or no, probably not 11, maybe a little bit later, but like saw her as a young child. And I remember thinking, oh, yeah, she's like class of 2024. Like, that's crazy. And now she's a freshman at Florida. And
Uh-huh.
Marissa Young, Duke's team, will go down and play against Florida, against UF. We'll talk about UF a little bit later and what they've done last year, what they did last year, what they
Mhm.
are, maybe seeded to do this year, ranked to do this year. But that will be a really fun matchup to see Duke versus Florida. I do want to touch on Duke's strength of schedule. Afterwards, just a few names that they're going to be playing: Michigan, South Carolina, Tennessee, Clemson, Florida,
Ooh.
Minnesota, UCLA. So, for Kelly, for you to know last year, the biggest critique was the strength of schedule. To see this
Mhm.
schedule now, what do you think the reaction is in the locker room at Duke with the really tough strength of schedule?
I mean, I'm not in the locker room anymore,
Yeah, it's
but
true.
if I was in that position, I would think Duke's response would be like, "Ah, I mean, we're ready. We showed
Hmm.
out. It's now I'm not the little dog anymore trying to prove myself." I feel like Duke softball's been proved, and
Hmm.
they should see themselves just like I same eyesight as those teams, you know?
Yeah.
So, it's just another opponent at this time in their schedule.
Yeah. Speaking of Duke being the top dog, let's talk about the ACC preseason rankings. Let's give an ACC overview. I'm going to read the preseason rankings. And one thing I want to note is obviously Stanford and Cal have joined
Mhm.
the Atlantic Coast Conference. So they're
Welcome.
going to be in the mix here. But I'll read starting at number one in the ACC preseason poll. Duke Blue Devils, very proud of Coach Young, what she's built. Florida State at number 2, followed by Virginia Tech, Stanford, Virginia, Cal, Clemson at number 7, Georgia Tech at 8, North Carolina 9, then Louisville, Notre Dame, Boston College, NC State, Syracuse, and then finally Pitt rounding out at number 15. Kelly, immediate reaction to the preseason rankings of the ACC.
Immediate reactions, they're sleeping on the Tigers. Seriously, like,
Uh,
I'm a little butthurt at 7. I feel like because all of those big names left, they're just like, "Oh, what's Clemson?" But I'm excited for them to show out. I mean, they should have a little chip on their shoulders this year.
yeah. I do want to ask about NC State at 13. Do you think NC State deserves 13 or should they be higher?
I mean, I think they're in a rebuilding stage now with Lindsay there as their head coach. I think this year we'll see. I mean, honestly, I want them to prove us wrong, but right now, I
You
hate to
think they're
say that.
13th in the ACC? You think they're not better than that?
I do think that the other teams, Virginia, Virginia Tech, UNC, like, I think other teams have proved themselves to kinda be there.
Hmm. Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting. I
but I
I
do
have
think
them much higher
Lindsay.
in the pre or the I think it'll end up they'll be much higher than 13 at the end of the year,
Yeah,
but
it'll be interesting to see where they land at.
it'll just be interesting to see how the whole conference kind of shakes out. There's so much more we could talk about, but we have got to get into this top 25. But I do want to touch on the ACC teams that are ranked in the top 25. Duke at number 8, Florida State at number 12, Virginia Tech at 18, Stanford at number 22. and we are using the ESPN rankings. And one other update that we haven't mentioned is shameless plug here. We are not affiliated with anybody. So we are not sponsored or anything by any publication or any company. So if you're interested, please email us at softballspeakeasy@gmail.com.
You should do it.
Honestly, you can probably get in touch with us in any other way. We're not too hard to get in touch with,
We're
but
not that famous.
yeah, we're just yeah, reach out to us. But so the only reason we make that caveat too is we're using ESPN softball rankings. There's a bunch of rankings out there,
Mhm.
but those are the 4 ACC teams that are ranked in the top 25. Kelly,
Yep.
when you look at the top 25, if you've gotten a chance to really dig into it,
Mhm.
what stands out to you? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with?
I love that Oklahoma's not at the top of any of them. That's so bad. I mean, I all praise to them, what they're doing over there. I mean, they're building a dynasty, and
Hmm.
it's insane. But I think the softball world is catching up, and it's changing because not one poll had them at 1.
Hmm.
Saw Florida, saw Texas. I do personally think Florida has a chance to win it all this year.
Yeah, I do too. And the other thing that stood out to me was I think Stanford, they feel like a little bit of an unknown, but I think Texas Tech not being in the top 8 is a little crazy. We
Really?
saw what Nija could do with a Stanford offense that had really struggled a lot, especially towards the back half of the year. They kind of put things together in the Super against LSU, but for Nija to be on Texas Tech, where they have a pretty formidable offense right now, I think they're going to be dangerous,
Yeah.
dangerous. But I do agree in that Texas, Florida, Oklahoma. I think it's really interesting that Oklahoma got some first place votes, knowing all the talent they lost. But I think
Mhm.
that just speaks to Patty Gasso, what she's built, and the program that she builds is
Yeah.
year after year the leadership passing the torch to the younger leaders, and excited to see kind of how it all shakes out. I think the number one theme across the board is that parity, parity, parity is anybody's game this year. Of course, Texas, Florida, Oklahoma, we've mentioned Duke in the top 8 as well. It's been interesting to see how it shakes out. Now we're going to get into the moment you've all been waiting for. We are going to pick the 2025 national champion. Okay, this is it. This is where you get it. Put the money down now because we're going to be right. Kelly, I'll pass it to you first. Who is going to win the 2025 national championship?
The University of Florida.
Ooh, I'm a little angry that you said that because I was going to pick them too.
Oh.
No, I think Texas is going to be very hard to beat, but when I look at those two together, Texas and Florida,
Mhm.
the deciding factor for me is Layla Lamar on Florida, baby.
Hell
I
yeah.
think they're both really good. I want it for Layla. I'm like, you know what? I'm biased. Whatever. That family and the
Mhm.
young, the children that Coach Young raised while she built this program. Not only she built
Insane.
an amazing softball program, she built amazing human beings that I hope every good thing in the world happens to, and Layla being one of them. So if it's between Texas and Florida, go Gators, chomp chomp. Let's
I
go.
know. I'm extremely excited for her to finally play. I feel like she's been a college player
Yeah.
for the past, like, 4 years.
Yes.
Just the way she swings the bat, like, she's about to just have an awesome freshman year.
Uh-huh. So excited to watch Layla. So excited to watch Layla play Duke. Watch Duke play
Mhm.
Layla. It'll be so interesting to see how the season shakes out, how Clemson does in their first 5 games. Kelly, remind us where Clemson is going for that first weekend.
Yep.
I have the schedule who they're playing, but where are y'all going? Are y'all staying
We're
home?
going to FAU.
Oh,
We're going to Boca
duh.
Raton, Florida, only 30 minutes from home.
Duh. I knew that. That's amazing. So you're going
Yep.
to Boca Raton, enjoying the sunshine. Like we mentioned, Duke playing in Clearwater, and yeah, just great
Yep.
softball all around. We are so excited for this season. As you can probably hear, we got some new microphones, we got a new set, with a lot of cool things in the works. We're very pumped, and we appreciate all of you. Please comment or DM us or respond to us on Instagram at sbspeakeasy. for anything that you all want to hear this year. Obviously, it's a little different with Kelly not playing, and so we don't follow it from that way, but we'll follow it from the perspective of a coach, which will be, I think, even more interesting.
Mhm.
So please let us know what you all want to hear, what you all want from the show, and we will absolutely provide it to you. But Kelly, anything to add ahead of season 3 of Softball Speakeasy?
No, I just wanna say you haven't heard it from my mouth ever,
Oh, oh
but
no.
go Tigers.
Oh no,
Yep,
no.
go Tigers.
When no, yeah. I hope you all have a wonderful season, and I hope Duke has a better one. I'm kidding. No. Kelly, well, this has been amazing. Thank you all again for listening, watching, viewing, and subscribing. We will upload every single Friday. Asterisk, maybe something happens. Thanks for your patience. We will upload every single Friday. Thank you so much for watching, listening, viewing, and subscribing. Please give us 5 stars, like, comment, and we will see you next week. Peace.